rises. What we are seeing is not people using these apps to subsidize the mortgage of their primary home, but rather they're using them to quickly turn rooms over at a high retail rate. If there is no owner occupant in the dwelling, the home fails to meet the criteria for share economy. In our current market, people are paying $100,000 over appraisal, cash, and no contingencies for single family homes because it is the equivalent to buying commercial real estate zoned for hotel use. This measure is not an original idea. The city of New Orleans enacted this same regulation in 2018. New Orleans took it a step further in its effort to preserve culture and protect locals by outright banning short-term rentals in specific neighborhoods. Those regulations were implemented with successful results and continue to be in place today. Last night, I spoke to a voter in Frisco, a Ukrainian immigrant having lived here for close to 10 years. She spoke of how Frisco was her American dream, saying that the American dream to an immigrant means an unattainable life. You may be struggling but you feel good just because you're making it work in this place. Her eyes welled with tears as she continued to speak about the inevitability of moving away. I hope we can find common ground around the goal of prioritizing houses for people who want to live in Frisco. I believe this is a totally reasonable regulation to place on homeowners. We are on the path to becoming another resort community with no actual residents. Now is the time to take action. Thank you, and I look forward to the council's response.
I appreciate that, and I hope you were able to listen in earlier in the conversation. Anyone else wishing to make public comment, either in person or online? If you're online, you can use the raise your hand feature.
Okay, dear Mayor, Town Council, thank you for this opportunity. I attended the entire work session this afternoon and heard two main issues. Oh, by the way, my name is Mary Waldman at 261 North 6th Avenue. My husband Mark and I, we moved to Frisco back in 2002 after 9/11 by purchasing the Hotel Frisco, and since then have expanded to Summit Mountain Rentals, a property management business here in Frisco and in Breckenridge. So thank you for this opportunity. I attended the entire work session, and I have heard two main issues that I'd like to address here today. By the way, Eva, great presentation this afternoon with data. Thank you. It was very, very good. First, I heard that there is a lot of cost managing short-term rentals. Second, the long-term housing continues to be a focus for the town. On the first issue, I ask that you add to your consideration that just the lodging tax alone, excluding the sales tax, with short-term rentals generates over $500,000 a year and growing. Next, I'd like you to recognize that the recent growing cost of managing short-term rentals is self-imposed as a result of many new recent policies the town has implemented over the past couple of years. In addition, the enforcement of compliance in itself is a revenue-generating effort. Every non-compliant owner you find will generate thousands of dollars in tax revenue to the town. Regarding long-term housing, with 40 staff and managing 40 long-term rentals ourselves, we are very familiar with this topic. We see long-term housing challenges, not as a result of anything that's specifically going on here locally, but because of the nationwide trend of buyers acquiring second home at a price point that makes long-term rentals incompatible. We see the only way out of this is through more acquisition, building, and construction regulations. And to that point, Mark and I are building a 13 two-bedroom workforce housing apartments for Summit Mountain Rental employees. We're putting our money where our mouth is. What I really want to communicate to you today is that the complexity and the detailed nature of these issues require involvement of local experts to provide multiple viewpoints that deals with the issues and the right data to truly define the problem and to come up with the best solution for Frisco. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Anyone else wishing to make public comment this evening? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Appreciate that. And now on to, sorry, shifting around on my agenda, new business. This is agenda item number 1. This is a new hotel and restaurant liquor license. Treehouse Productions, Inc., doing business as Rocky Mountain Coffee Roasters. I will hereby call the public hearing to order. We're here this evening to conduct a public hearing for the consideration of a new hotel and restaurant liquor license application located at 285 Main Street. The name of the applicant is Treehouse Productions, Inc., doing business as Rocky Mountain Coffee Roasters. All testimony will be under oath. The town clerk will swear in all making statements or asking questions other than council members. We will now hear a staff report from the town clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As prescribed by state statute, all new liquor license applications must be first submitted to the local liquor authority, which is our town council, for approval. Supporting documentation as outlined on the state's forms must accompany the application. You have received all of the preliminary findings, including the application and petition in your email. This application is for a new hotel and restaurant liquor license for Treehouse Productions, Inc., doing business as Rocky Mountain Coffee Roasters, located at 285 Main Street. The applicant is Tim Adrian. He's filed the necessary paperwork in accordance with the Colorado Liquor Code. We have also published in the paper and at the building. He has done fingerprinting and the police department have performed the background checks.
We'll now hear testimony from our police department, followed by questions by the applicant. Chief.
Mayor and council, sky checks on the book and passes that way.
Thank you for that. And so should we swear in the applicant, please?
Yeah. Yes. Tim, could you kind of come up to the lectern, please? Thank you. If you would, raise your hand and repeat after me. I, Tim Adrian,
I, Tim Adrian,
do solemnly swear and affirm,
do solemnly swear and affirm,
under penalty of perjury,
under penalty of perjury,
that the testimony I'm about to provide
that the testimony I'm about to provide
is accurate to the best of my knowledge.
is accurate to the best of my knowledge.
Thank you. I believe our attorney has a couple questions for you.
All right, just a couple of
Very brief ones. In your application packet, there is a petition included, correct, with a
Yeah.
number of names, individuals who support the application or don't support the application, as the case may be. Can you tell us who circulated, who handed that petition around for people to sign?
Me and my wife handed it out.
And where did you do that?
About maybe a month ago.
Where though? Well,
Just, around town, like we just walked
walked
down
in.
Main Street one evening.
Gotcha. And are you able to testify that, to the best of your knowledge, each of the individuals that signed that petition was either a 21-year-old inhabitant, 21-year-old or older inhabitant of the town of Frisco, or an individual who owned or managed a business within the town of Frisco?
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Any statements you'd like to make on your behalf?
No, I'm just, yeah. I mean, thanks for looking this over and hope you guys give me the opportunity to get this license and pursue some different business stuff. Thanks for your time. Good to see everybody in person again.
Agreed. Thank you. If there's council questions in the end, we'll probably have.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Is there anyone here this evening wishing to speak in support of this application?
Yeah, I didn't even know Tim was here to do this tonight, but there's a definite need for an establishment with just a different vibe. That's what's going on. most of the places as far as like hanging out, recreating. There's obviously a lot of alcohol heavy socializing in this town. So somebody that doesn't drink alcohol that regularly, the vibe of these places that do serve alcohol is kind of, I don't know, it's sort of homogenous. Thinking about the ability to go to Tim's coffee shop in the evening with the lights dimmed and like hang out in a different zone. It's just like something that's needed heavily in the community.
Also, just state your name for the record. Sorry.
223 Creekside Drive.
Thank you. Any other members here to speak in support of the applicant? Is there anyone here who is opposing the application? Are there any questions from council to staff or the applicant? And any closing comments you would like to make? It's a question I have to ask. Great, thank you. Then at this time, I will close the public hearing.
Great.
That's a motion.
Motion. Mr. Mayor, I move that the council or the liquor authority, if you will, issues a hotel and restaurant liquor license for Treehouse Productions, Inc., DBA Rocky Mountain Coffee Roasters located at 285 Main Street on the basis of the following findings. That the authority, one, has reviewed the neighborhood under consideration and finds it to be the town of Frisco as a whole. Two, has considered the desires of the inhabitants of the neighborhood and finds that the inhabitants desire an additional establishment that serves liquor. Three, has reviewed the needs of the neighborhood for the outlet and finds that the needs of the neighborhood are not met by the existing outlets. Four, has reviewed the location of the proposed establishment and finds that it is not located within 250 feet of any school or college campus. Five, has reviewed the qualifications of the applicant and pursuant to the requirements of the Frisco Code and Colorado statutes, find the applicant to be qualified to obtain a hotel and restaurant liquor license for Treehouse Productions, Inc., DBA Rocky Mountain Coffee Roasters.
Motion's been made by Mayor Pro Tem. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Called.
I would just like to say thank you, and I'm glad you're innovating and trying to change your business to stay relevant.
Can you call the question, please?
Aronson.
I actually pushed my space bar. Yes.
Burley.
Yes.
Allen.
Yeah.
Powell.
Yes.
Incan.
Yes.
Sherburne.
Yes.
Mortensen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. Look forward to seeing the new business model up and running. Yep. And I have to make an apology and thank you for pointing it out, but I skipped right past the consent agenda and went on to new business. So so far, the only flaws this evening are not technical, but me. So I'll take credit for that. And is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I move the approval of consent agenda.
Been moved by Mayor Pro Tem Burley. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Sherburne. Any discussion on the motion? We'll call the question, please.
Burley.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Incan.
Yes.
Sherburne.
Yes.
Mortensen.
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize for the. Next is agenda item number 2. This is ordinance 21-07, an ordinance amending chapter 65 of the Code of Ordinances of the town of Frisco, Colorado concerning building, construction, and housing standards by amending section 65-1 concerning standards adopted by reference to adopt by reference the NFPA 70 National Electric Code 2020 edition and to provide penalties for violation thereof. I will now open up the public hearing. Turn over to Jeff.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll throw right over to our esteemed building official, Rick.
Good evening, council. We are here to consider ordinance 21-07, which is an ordinance to adopt by reference the 2020 version of the National Electric Code, also or formerly known as NFPA 70. So NFPA 70 is updated every 3 years by NFPA, and then it is adopted by the Colorado State Electrical Board. And under Colorado revised statutes, jurisdictions with their own enforcement departments are required to also adopt and enforce that same version of the latest version of their adopted code. So by adopting this code, it will enable the town to continue to be in compliance with Colorado State revised statutes.
Pretty straightforward. Memo. Are there any questions for staff at this time? Excellent.
Yes, I would add that there are no proposed amendments at this time with the code adopted by reference. There would be no further amendments.
Is anyone wishing to make public comment? No public comment. I'll close public comment. Back to council discussion. Exciting.
Keep stuff updated.
Yeah.
We do need to- Yeah, especially things that spark and burn things down.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve agenda item number 2, ordinance 21-7.
Motion has been made to approve by Councilmember Inkin. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Councilmember Aronson. Discussion on the motion. Question, please.
Fallon,
Yes.
Held,
Yes.
Inkin,
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yes.
Sherburne,
Yes.
Aronson,
Yes.
Burley.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item is agenda item number 3. This is resolution 21-16, a resolution of the town of Frisco, Colorado, adopting the EV readiness and Summit County plan for the town of Frisco. I'll open up the public hearing. Turn it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor. And in person, it's a lot easier to tell who the next presenter will be. So it's pretty obvious that this one, Don's gonna.
Oh yeah, he's right on my screen.
And also, Jess Hooper from HC3 will be doing the primary, and I just want to make sure she is on and available and unmuted. Unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Unmuted.
She is here. So I'll just kick it off real quick. This is a resolution to consider adoption of an electric vehicle readiness plan that's been prepared by HC3 as part of the Summit County Climate Action Plan. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jess, and I'll be very brief. So Jess, go for it.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. Council, if you'll
Oh,
just give
we're
me a
not getting any
moment.
sound from you, Jess,
Um,
on your side.
hmm,
My recommendation is to hop in and hop back out.
Okay.
See that? We were doing so well until it was the consent agenda. Oh, me.
Looking forward to make sure we see her as soon as she gets in. Pretty, can you make her co-host? Josh, you want to try and talk again?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
No, we still don't have, you.
No.
We still don't have you.
Uh,
It's on her end. That's why I suggested the in and out.
Hmm.
Didn't she just do this in Silverthorne? One of the other
Could be
towns is
the-
having the same.
Jess, another,
Some might-
another opportunity might be to do a call-in instead.
She's showing up as muted, actually.
Right.
Yeah, but it's still, it's coming from her, not on our side.
Yeah, maybe.
Jess, can you unmute? Can you click your unmute button?
I just clicked it again. Can you hear me?
Or the one on your keypad, if not the screen. So you just have a-
Here.
A little bit of the staff report into the record while Jess is working on some of this. She does have a presentation, which if you want to do a screen share while you're setting up your phone, you can go ahead and do that as well. Jess.
Yep.
Screen.
That part's working.
I'm gonna, bummer.
Each council member will do what they think she was gonna say for each slide. And see how close it is.
right there on the bottom.
Oh, that helps.
I could give her presentation for her.
Can you?
actually. But I'll let her do it. She's getting paid the big bucks.
I'm sorry, guys. I don't have an answer to this. I understand that on the outside, people can hear just speaking and it's
Oh, really?
happening internally and I
Huh.
do not have an answer.
Well, Don, you can give a presentation.
Probably not as well as a council member Burley could, however.
Yeah, I'll play backup.
I could certainly give it a stab at it. Jess, if you don't mind, I'll just read off some of your slides. But in 2018, the Summit Community Action Plan was adopted by and created first by a collaborative group that was led by HC3 and then adopted by each of the jurisdictions in the county. The purpose of the Summit Climate Action Plan was in order to lay out a number of processes and goals to pursue and reduce greenhouse gases in Summit County, as well as a number of other proposals. And part of that, a big part of our greenhouse gas emissions are related to vehicles and transportation. So a large component of that is how do we reduce those? Well, we convert those to and increase the number of electric vehicles on the roads in Summit County. Slide. Jess?
Can you hear me? I'm on the phone now.
So the next slide, I think we'll go into there we go. Before an overview of the plan, why EVs are so important. As you can see, a majority of the world's oil consumption goes into powering vehicles, getting us and our stuff from place to place. Jess would do this a lot better, but I'll keep on rolling. Slide. Transportation recently became the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in the US and Colorado. In Summit County, it's the second largest source of emissions. The charts on the slide here show that most of our transportation emissions come from light duty trucks and passenger vehicles, which are what most of us drive most of the time. As for us, this is good news because there's a lot of electric vehicles already on the market that can serve that sector and be replaced with EVs. Alternatives to these cars already exist, from the electric Ford F-150 to the VW ID4 that Jesse and I will be driving at the end of this year, we hope.
Good for you, Don.
I guess I'm looking forward to getting an EV of my own. So I think that's Jesse and Jesse driving these. Next slide. All right, so US vehicle sales are projected to double within the next 5 years. So from an emission standpoint, that's great that we're making that a dent in that way. It is also the future. EV sales are projected to double. Because of our status as a destination community, it is in our best interest to build out infrastructure now so we can accommodate increasing numbers, locals and visitors who are EV drivers. As a matter of fact, Summit County is among the top 15 communities nationwide outside of California. So I guess that's nationwide -1 for EV adoption. Also on this list are Boulder and Broomfield in Colorado. So it's not just locals that are buying EVs, it is our front range visitors too. And they need to know what they can drive up here and that they're able to easily find a place to charge. That's where this EV plan comes in and why it's important. This plan is designed to make owning, driving, or riding in an electric vehicle easier and more convenient for both residents and visitors. The plan includes 20 strategies across five categories, each of which will help keep us on track and moving towards the EV transition. And now we'll go into each category and some key strategies in each category. Infrastructure. So some of the keys here are to expand public charging and fleet charging infrastructure at town facilities, and then offer EV charging infrastructure incentives to residents businesses, and HOAs. And these are, on a side note, this is something that we've accomplished very recently in Frisco with a couple of installations down at the marina and the PRA, which is, I think also on another slide, but well, I'm winging it here. So Jess, next slide. Policy strategies in this category are designed to increase access to EV charging through policy tools, as well as creating additional infrastructure. So some key actions that Frisco can and should and will continue to pursue is streamline EV charging permitting processes, as well as require installation of EV charging infrastructure with major renovations of commercial and multifamily buildings. At an earlier work session, as another aside, I believe Councilman Aronson had suggested creating an incentive plan, where similar to the Solarized Summer program, where we offer incentives to local homeowners to install and retrofit EV charging stations. And as Gilly was leaving, that project was just on the drawing board, and we're getting it close to implementing it. But certainly that is another opportunity for us to really incentivize this for local property owners. Next slide, please. Light duty fleets. Strategies in this category are designed to support municipal fleet managers through the EV transition. So things that Frisco can do for this, develop a vehicle replacement plan that considers the total cost of ownership, and also creating an EV feasibility inventory to identify which vehicles may be ideal for electric vehicle replacement. And so this would be our fleet vehicles. As an example, maybe our building inspection vehicles. Some of these light duty passenger vehicles could be easily converted over. Next.
Don, I joined on a different computer. Can you hear me?
Still trying to talk.
No.
I must have missed something. Community outreach. So another key strategy is supporting the community and making sure that the community is aware of what we can be doing, and making residents more comfortable and confident in driving EVs, and knowing that they'll be able to operate in our climate, as well as have opportunities to recharge. So key actions that we can do are promoting Frisco as an EV friendly destination, and also promote state, federal, Excel Energy, and local EV rebates and incentives, such as the one that I just mentioned that is in its infancy. Next slide, please. Another key strategy is equity, and making sure that there is opportunities for and creating an equity checklist to for program design and implementation. Incentives for and the EV plan is no exception. While it's beyond the purview of this plan to make electric cars, or any car for that matter, affordable, we can help increase affordability and access. The following slides will have a few ways to address that the plan addresses equity. Next steps. So next steps for Frisco and Town Council are to, one, adopt the EV readiness plan, then pursue funding for EV charging infrastructure projects at Frisco facilities, as well as potentially in individual residences, purchase a pilot program light duty electrical vehicle for our fleet, create EV electric vehicle codes and regulations that apply to new construction, continue participation in the transportation working group to support and promote community outreach events and other EV related initiatives. And as she said, if we're excited, it's time to get rolling. And so finally, Jess would like to close with this quote from Thomas Edison. Note that this quote actually occurred and was originally stated well over 100 years ago. And even then he felt and believed that electric vehicles were the future and the superior automobile. We're finally catching up to Edison's vision. And it's exciting that we can help make this a reality. And we'd love to do that by asking the town council to adopt the EV readiness plan, so our communities and partners can continue working on implementing these strategies together. All right, if there's any questions, I will be happy to try to patch Jess in on my cell phone, or possibly Council Member Burley could answer some of them.
Any questions for Jess or Roxy at this time? Seeing no question, I'll open up for public comment. Is anyone wishing to make public comment? Public comment, I'll close public comment. And back to council discussion or something you wanted to add, but
No, I just, it was presented that HC3 was kind of the facilitator of this, but I really want to emphasize all the different partners that were involved, including Excel, some of our large employers across Summit County, all of the different jurisdictions. And then also, representatives from the ski area. And so it's really, well, it's called an EV readiness plan. It's really about kind of electrification across all of our mobility options and trying to also reduce single occupancy vehicles on the road at the same time. It's also, the argument against EVs is often like, oh, well, you're just plugging into a grid that's dirty today anyway. But the reality is that we are powered by Excel Energy. They're rapidly transitioning to a cleaner grid. And it's these kinds of efforts that can help drive that demand to get them to make the transition faster. So appreciate your support on this, and super, super cool to see. The governor's goal is 1 million EVs on the road by 2030.
And I just wanted to say thank you to Jess. The plan is so well written, and I think it's just clear for us to now take and help implement. And I think, kind of to your point, Jesse, how do we as a town sort of help convey that it's not hard to have an electric vehicle? The charging stations are more and more readily available. It's such a joy to just find them and plug your car in. And I mean, I think that our communications, Vanessa, I'm looking at you again, you do such an amazing job getting the word out. And sometimes people don't want like a heavy-handed educational session on EV, but just getting the word out in a way that people can relate and they know that we have these charging stations, I think will go such a long way. So it's great work though. Thank you.
sorry for the technology problems, Jessica. Thank you so much and your team.
I was looking for that thumbs up. You can hear us.
Yeah.
I think it's fabulous. The more, the better. The two takeaways, neither of which has to be deeply dived into tonight. One is, I truly don't understand the economics of these things, where you plug your car in, instead of going to the gas station, you're paying for the electricity. We're putting these devices out. Are they moneymakers? Are they, I just think they're proliferating so fast that at some point they're going to be like phone booths in the old days when you owned a bunch of telephones in public areas. You made real money out of this. So I just don't want to lose sight of this is a wonderful thing to be doing, but there's probably an economic conversation that should be taking place. The other part is the e-bikes are in here in certain places, and I have concerns about it. Meaning in this community and in different communities, e-bikes have a different use. Here, I believe they're mostly recreation devices, and I don't know what it means to have e-bikes in here along with EVs, because I'm sure some people, and I think you use it as a commuting device, but I think that's a rare use in this community. And I know, there's a place, and I'm not going deep into it, but I'm not as enthusiastically in favor of e-bikes being a part of this policy as electric vehicles, because I think in this community, that's a more complicated issue.
Comments or a motion?
I will make a motion. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve resolution 21-16, a resolution of the town of Frisco, Colorado, adopting the EV readiness and Summit County plan for the town of Frisco.
Motion's been made to approve by Councilmember Sherburne. Is there a second? Second by Mayor Pro Tem Burley. Discussion on the motion. Can you call the question, please?
Held.
Yes.
Incan.
Yes.
Sherburne.
Yes.
Mortensen.
Yes.
Aronson.
Yes.
Burley.
Yes.
Fallon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jess, thank you. Sorry again about the technology. Next time. Next item is agenda item number 4. And this is resolution 21-07, a resolution amending the Frisco Housing Helps Program. Open up the public hearing. And am I going right to Bill on this one? So take a stab at it, Jeff.
I think that's a safe one, but I would note that I think it's cool that you had a good workshop a couple hours ago on housing issues, and here's one moving forward already. So Bill's got some good news.
So the nightcap here and circle back on the housing topic. So if you remember all the way back into 2019, some of you were here, some of you weren't at the time. But the town of Frisco adopted a housing helps program. It's kind of modeled after Vail and Deed. And similar projects happening over in Breckenridge at Summit County at the same time. And I noticed on my staff report on the first page, I didn't give you the verbatim language from the 2019 resolution, but the concepts are all still there. So the idea behind the program is it provides town financing assistance to either people trying to buy a home, down payment assistance, or to existing property owners. That could be an individual, it could be a business, it could even be a developer. The other part of that is we also provided financial assistance in the form of helping out accessory dwelling units. And then, excuse me here, the other one was the opportunity for the town to purchase a property like you did Mountainside, and then look at options for that, either putting on a restriction, reselling it, or renting and leasing, a variety of things. So the crux of this program and where it came out of Vail, it's not so much an affordability project. So let's be really clear about this. This is not necessarily an affordable housing project. This is how do you keep your community and not become a full-on 100% resort project? That was the discussion that was happening in Vail when I was there 10 years ago. And this is one of the programs that came out of this, is how do we save our town? Similar to some comments you heard earlier. So I just want to frame that when we talk about some of the trade-offs with this program. So with Vail and Deed and the original Frisco Housing Helps, the concept was the deed restriction in exchange was simply an occupancy restriction. You're a local resident. It didn't get into AMI caps, price appreciation caps, number of household members, all the other complications that are inherent in some of our other restrictions. So the initial the initial resolution kind of set up that program. Council did have further discussions later that year about the program and kind of pedaled back a little bit on that. So the council at that time imposed that we switch back to our more standard deed restriction of 100% AMI. And the council at that time also determined that assisting current property owners was the lowest priority for the program. And there was also a cap place of $75,000 per unit. And then I did note there was also some discussion about the home energy assessment thing, and that's being carried forward in this as well. So staff is proposing we reset Housing Helps back to its original approval to give us more flexibility. When Eva's been talking with Summit County, the vast majority of their Housing Helps scenarios are helping existing owners. We're seeing situations where you may have a condo owner who may have a financial need in their life, or they may have an assessment coming up. So we're seeing these with some of the lower end market units where there may be re-roof and re-siding, all these major expenses coming with the unit that person would likely be displaced or would have to put up for sale if they did not have this assistance. So that's where it's kind of falling in. And again, Vail's similar. The vast majority of the Housing Helps product is current owners. It's not trying to get somebody new into the community. So the proposed resolution language essentially highlights those 4 areas in the whereas statement. And we try to be a little more explicit with this language than the old language, that we're not talking about AMI caps on any of these items, with the exception of when the town purchases a unit. And then you as a council, as a property owner, have all the decision authority you want to make in terms of how you would encumber that property and how you would want to pass that down the line. If you want to rent it, sell it, keep it in your holding, your portfolio, whatever you want to do. We did put some notes in here clarifying that the intent of the deed restrictions is to not allow short-term rentals. That's obviously a topic that's come up a little bit more since 2019 even. And then instead of putting a dollar cap, we put it in the whereas that the financial assistance should be based upon that differential between market rate and the valuation of the property once it's been encumbered. What we've heard anecdotally from Summit County and Breck and Vale and other places, it's in that 10 to 15% range. And that's happening naturally in that you're limiting your buyer pool. So rather than putting an AMI cap on something, you're simply shrinking the buyer pool and the buyer opportunity. And as council discussed, we do need housing across that spectrum. So we want to encourage the higher income earners to maybe at the medical center in Frisco, as well as the low wage earners in town. So I think that's the proposal in front of you for recommend approval. We're open to any other ideas or concepts you may have on housing helps at this point, or as we get into housing helps 3.0 further down the road.
Any questions?
Do you know how many, I believe your staff memo mentioned that we've had 0 except for the town buy down units, right? Do you know how many agreements or products, as you call them, have gone through the BREC or the county program? I'm just curious of scale.
Yeah, do you remember those numbers off the top of your head? I believe Summit County had partnered with BREC.
Even
was
just a
on
ballpark.
I think Summit County partnered with BREC on 18 of theirs, and was their number in the low 20s? Does that sound right?
Correct. And they did
For
have,
the county.
Yeah.
and they did have 13 applicants come to the table where they were trying to purchase a property and got outbid. 13 applications trying to get housing help funds and got outbid. And I thought that number resonated when I asked Jason for that data.
And Vale is at about 250.
And they've been around 18 months, 2 years longer.
And they obviously have a much higher funding. pool to facilitate the project.
A little more money than we spend.
I'm just curious, when our number is 0. Like,
I wouldn't say that we've been aggressively marketing this
Sure.
as well. But Eva has been receiving phone calls even as recently as I believe last week, when some of the daily articles came out. And again, the scenario has been current owners. I think the most recent one was somebody who has got some long-term tenants in place and is looking at the option of keep my property or sell out because the market's high. And if they sell out, we know the result.
And the focus bill over in Vale, I was at that meeting, I think they were saying, they're not just taking anything, they're strategically focused on certain tiers evaluation, because they use that to kind of target the user there. I heard that from Greg as well. Trying to get those, the higher end of the missing middles. Right. I think it's their duty.
And I know the council the initial thought was try to pursue the option of purchasing something and buying it down was kind of the initial goal, one of the higher goals. And as we can see by what's available and how quickly things are going, that's not a very viable option in today's real estate market. Working with somebody who already owns the property is probably the most viable option in terms of accomplishing something.
What's good long-term play?
Questions?
Bill, do you see this change as affecting a change and bumping up the numbers that we can actually have in Frisco?
I don't think so. I think if the council's willing to, put working with current owners back on the priority list, I think that is a big opportunity that I think was kind of narrowed based on past discussions.
If we say, we say yes, which I hope we do. You guys administer it. What's the marketing? Like, I would propose that we put a serious effort towards a blitz. Can we get 10 within the next 2 months indicating our seriousness towards this, or whatever the numbers may be? But how would the marketing of this project work?
I would take one step back before you jump to a target number and think about budget.
Oh, I know.
I think there's a $300,000 budget on this. Bonnie's not in the room, but just in terms of if you're thinking, I know Avon has a similar program, and I know in the press about a month ago they upped their cap from 75 to 100,000.
I can't wait for you guys to come back and say we blew the budget.
Right. So
can we do a budget adjustment with 5A money?
So I think that's the next step is, if we were just to say, throwing out rough numbers, 100,000 per unit, that's 3 units. So I just want to make sure everybody's got a realistic understanding of the program.
I take that back. It's more just the concept of is there a plan already being formulated to market this in a way that's bolder than what we've done before?
I don't think it's in place yet, but I think if we have adoption of this, we know our marching orders are to make one.
And
1/7 for sure.
Bill, if you, this is a good opportunity, I think, to layer a couple of programs and get kind of increased, kind of a reinforced benefit. If you get an owner into the housing helps program in terms of the covenant, and then come with a rental housing helps program to bridge the gap, and kind of really kind of create that extra incentive to get that in the long-term market. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. So I would make sure that they're not mutually exclusive, and to kind of reinforce the fact that in fact we can target some of these units, both of those programs and get terms of long-term.
So with this one, to that point, so I was just talking to Dawn about a friend of mine that's interested in this program, who's purchasing a single family home that she wants to rent out to full-time locals, basically. And so just to be clear, that option is available to her. So she'll put the deed restriction basically on her home and then rent it out to whatever the fair, it's not a restricted rate, but it's a fair rate that she can get to for locals. But she cannot rent it out to short-term people.
Correct.
Yeah.
Or we step in and bridge the gap if we want, if we want to make a bid at a 60% AMI.
Yeah.
So whatever her nut is,
Yeah.
we can come in and say, well, now at 60%, we're at $1,200 a month. The market rate for a 3-bedroom is going to be $2,800.
I see.
We can come in with $1,000
Yeah,
a month, or $2,000, whatever it is, and target that to 60% AMI.
Yeah, good idea.
That's kind of where I envision that rental house.
Yeah. You guys can layer onto that however you want.
Yeah.
You have that discretion with your funds and your other programs. This is just one tool in the toolbox that we're talking about.
Good.
Is there anyone wishing to make public comment on? And then number 4. Seeing no public comment, back to council discussion. Perhaps motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve agenda 4, right? 4?
Yep, correct.
Resolution 2117, and then how it helps approve that.
2107.
2107.
Oh,
Yep. Resolution has been moved by Councilmember Fallon to approve resolution 21-07. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Held. Any further discussion on the motion? We'll call the question, please.
Certainly. Incan,
Yes.
Sherburne. Yes. Mortensen,
Yes.
Aronson,
Yes.
Burley,
Yes.
Fallon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, to be
Yes.
clear, in the council packet, it's labeled 2021-17. So,
I'm looking at the agenda.
Yep.
yeah, so the agenda item number 4 is 2107, and then if you go to the resolution,
Yep. So
it's labeled 21-17.
and
So
that's 17 is the correct number.
I don't know which one's the
Yeah,
correct
'cause the
number,
1 to 4
but there's 2
The
different
one-
ones.
the 1 to 4 to 16, so I'm going with 17.
Okay.
Thank you for catching that. Is that clear enough for the record, Ted? That- great. Next item is executive session. Motion to enter executive session. Wording is on my.
Sorry, I went back to the- Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into executive session pursuant to CRS 24-6-402 (4) conferences with an attorney for the town for the purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions concerning liquor licensing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, we need to go. And seconded by Councilmember Sherburne. We call the question, please.
Sherburne.
Yes.
Mortensen,
Yes.
Aronson,
Yes.
Burley,
Yes.
Fallon, Held,
Yes.
Incan.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll close this meeting and we'll reopening a different Zoom for the purposes of recording it.